Y'all are live.
Hello, Thomas. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So you are interviewing today for the role of HR generalist?
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. Can you tell me a little about your previous experience and kind of why you're interested in this job?
Yeah, so in my previous experience, I've had a lot of roles in HR. I've been around many different companies. I've had internships and actual just generalized jobs as an HR generalist. But I think that with this company, I would be able to do a lot of great things. So that's why I'm interested in the position.
Right. So in this role, we expect you to implement training plans. So do you have an experience where you struggled to train a new employee and how you were able to find a solution for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that during my time as an undergraduate student in a lab, I was given the opportunity to train a new student who was new to both the university and to the country. She came from China, and she didn't speak the best English, but she was tech savvy. And so really all I had to do was teach her how to use the specific software that we were using for our research. So what I did was I sat her down with me and I showed her what I was doing with the research, making a survey, and then I asked her to do it. And I went through the steps with her of how she would do what I was doing, and then I made her actually make a survey on her own without my help. And then after a few times of doing this, answering her questions, in a few weeks she was making her own surveys and they were looking pretty great. So that's a situation where I struggled at first, but I got there in the end.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like you overcame a lot of barriers, but you were able to take it step by step.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, say you were asked to increase workplace motivation. Can you describe how you would use what you learned to do this?
Yeah, I think that with motivation, there's a lot of personality that comes into each individual person, how you motivate them. I can remember one specific instance where I worked for the conference services department of my university, and there were some students who were working there over the summer who weren't exactly happy with their positions. And I found that this was because one of the more outgoing students was given a station in one of the least trafficked, not hotels, but dormitories for the summer. So she wasn't interacting with people a lot. And then there were other students who were not as outgoing, more introverted, but they were in the more high trafficked areas. And so I simply had them switch. And what that did was gave the more outgoing students more of an opportunity to interact with other people, smile, make them laugh like they wanted to do, and it gave the more introverted students more time for themselves to not be overwhelmed by social interaction. So with motivation, after that they became a lot more satisfied, and I saw an increase in time that they spent at the station, like their actual stations, and they definitely seem happier. So I think that would translate into the workplace pretty well.
That's great. I really liked how you took into account people's personalities in order to promote a better experience for them. So
Absolutely.
Awesome. So can you tell me about a time when you were preparing to deliver a presentation and maybe something went wrong, maybe something didn't go your way, and how you kind of overcame that?
Yeah, there was one specific instance when I was an undergrad, and I was giving a presentation to a class. It wasn't a big class, but it was a group presentation. One of my group members wasn't there. She was sick, so she couldn't show up, and so one of us had to take over her spot. And since I helped her with her part of the project, I thought it would be good for myself to actually be part of her presentation bit. And so that's what I did. But then to add on to that, in the middle of the presentation, the power went out in our part of the building, and we had to wait until everything came back on. And so what I did during this time, I thought it was a good time to ask questions to the audience members, ask if they knew where we were going, if everything was making sense to them, any questions that they had for us. I took the time to make sure that there was a lot of clarity. And then by the time that was all done, we had the generator going and we got the presentation moving right along. So I think it was good to actually take that time to make sure that we were with everyone.
That's awesome. Right. So in this role, you'll often have to make difficult decisions based on the organizational data that you collect. Can you tell me about a time when you may have had to make a difficult decision in the workplace and kind of how you went about it?
Yeah, so when I worked for the Statler Hotel in the banquets department, I was leading an event where the university president was attending. And then there was another event happening at the same time where the president of the hotel was actually attending. And they were actually in two different places. During that time, there was a lot of hotel students who were taking their practicums. So they didn't have a lot of experience, but they needed the credit, and they worked with us in the banquets department for just one event, just to like get their feet in the water, see how they were doing. At this time, we knew that the hotel president wanted to see some of the students in action, but we needed more people on hand for the university president because we were short-staffed that night, because I think a couple of people were sick, and so we just needed more people. And so I had to decide whether or not we were going to, put the students who didn't have a lot of experience with the university president or bring them over to the hotel president. And what I eventually did was I decided that the students who were seniors who hadn't had the actual experience yet, they would actually go with the university president because the hotel president wanted to see the younger people. He liked to brag about how the hotel had a lot of students running it. So I made that decision just by myself. No one had like anything to say bad about it. I think it went pretty well. The university president didn't say anything negative, and the hotel president was very happy. He mentioned that to us afterwards, so I think it went pretty well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So this isn't always the case. However, at times you may be asked to provide expert testimony in employment lawsuits. How would you go about obtaining relevant data in a case that you had no previous contact with for an individual who's suing the company?
It's a great question. I think that in that situation, I would want to know a lot about the individual who was actually being interviewed and who was suing the company. I would want to know if there were any, recording devices during their interview that we could look over, see their interviewer like in person, see their notes, if there, were any discrepancies before with that interviewer, maybe they might have, slipped up again. And if we have the resume and the references for the other person who was suing the company, maybe call their previous employer, see if, they've run into legal troubles with that particular person in the past. Really just get like a whole picture of this person, now how much of a picture that I possibly could, just to see if there was anything that we did incorrectly or that was not communicated to them well enough, just to see where something went wrong.
Right. Okay, so Thomas, can you describe a time when you had to change something about the work environment in order to foster healthy organizational functioning?
Yeah, there was one time when I worked in the Statler Hotel, but it was not in the banquets department. It was actually at a restaurant, and I was at the salad bar making salads for people. And so what happened was that there was a box of gloves that we would have to routinely, switch out our gloves, but it was all the way down the hall from us. It wasn't a long hall, but it was pretty far down. And at times, the rush of students and other people trying to get their food would just be overwhelming, and you'd have to go back and forth just to get your gloves. And so I found a roll of tape, and I actually taped the box to the wall nearest to the actual salad station, so that we could just, go from the salad station to the gloves and back again, very easy, very quick. And it made us a lot faster, I think. We ran out of gloves a lot quicker too, but I think it worked out in the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So one last question.
Okay.
So can you tell me about a specific dispute that you ever had to resolve on a work team, and how you identified and used each person's positions and interests in order to come to a productive solution?
Yeah, so back when I worked in the banquets department for the Statler Hotel, there were two employees who didn't like each other, and it was pretty much, implicit, but a little bit overtly as well. Like they were just very short with each other. And what I heard from each of them was one thought the other one was, rude, the other one thought that the other person was kind of just in for the money, that they didn't really care about hospitality, they didn't really care about the people. And what I actually found out later was that both of them were trying to get into a higher role as a lead, as what I was, after I was leaving. And in this way, they kind of were like competing for it, like against each other, and they kind of used those things as like the rude and the not being hospitality or hospitable enough, excuse me, as excuses for why they should be the next lead. And this wasn't really working in the group setting because they weren't communicating very well. So what I did was that there was a particular event where they were both working, I was the lead, and I just kept reinforcing the idea that they were on a team, but not too like explicitly. I kept on telling them, "Good job, team. You guys are doing well together." Kind of just showing them that they can work together and they don't have to compete, because the actual nature of the job demanded that they work together productively.
That sounds like a great solution, and I'm glad it worked out for you.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't have any right now, but if I think of some, can I feel free to email you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it.